Last week's video discussed why angels have wings, even though angels are not described to have wings in the original sources. There are, however, two important exceptions about specific types of angels, the Seraphim and the Cherubim. And the Bible describes both of them to have wings. In the Seraphim's case, they have 3 pairs of wings, while the Cherubim have 2 pairs of wings and multiple faces. Last week I also mentioned the Ophanim, another type of angel who are described and depicted as the wheel of a chariot. These multi-winged angels and wheels are not the most common angels depicted in art, as the stories in which they appear are not very popular subjects for artists, but we'll get to that in a bit. Although, at the same time, cherubs or cherubim are one of the most popular angels in art history, referring to these little baby angels residing in heaven. And before getting into the hierarchy of angels, the general belief is that angels are spirits and thus genderless, and while artists usually modeled them after some sitter, either male or female, they adjusted the features of that sitter to make their gender fairly ambiguous. And while an angel usually looks like a human being, the idea is that as angels are spirits, they don't need to eat or excrete, and thus it is not necessary for them to look like a human being. But they're generally depicted as such by painters, an idea that has developed across art history, and that would be understandable for the illiterate viewers to whom the biblical message had to be conveyed. Almost every religion that recognizes the existence of angels talks about different types of angels and a hierarchy of angels, meaning that one type of angel is more important than another one. For example, an archangel like Michael is more important than a regular angel. The types of angels and their ranking, however, is different across religions. To give an example, in Christianity, the Seraphim are highest in rank, and in Islam, the angels comparable to the Seraphim are also the most important. But in Judaism, they are ranked 5th out of the 10 different angels they recognize. As most well-preserved art in the past few centuries has been made in Christian environments like Renaissance Italy, I will focus here on the ranking from Christianity. Since the 1st century AD, they recognized 9 different types of angels. And just to make it clear that the more serious artists understood this hierarchy was repeated by several authors afterwards, including Dante in his Divine Comedy, a brilliant book that has inspired many artists. The 3 angels of the highest order, in order of importance, are the Seraphim, the Cherubim, and Ophanim, followed by the angels from the middle order, which are the dominions, virtues, and powers. And the 3 angels of the lowest order, again from most important to least important, are principalities, archangels, and angels. Some of these may sound more familiar than others. The reason is that some types of angels are rarely described or depicted in art, like the dominions, who govern the movement of stars, planets and other celestial objects, and will never visit our planet. In the previous videos in this series, I already discussed the common angels and archangels, and last week also mentioned the 3rd most important type of angel, the Ophanim, which are depicted as multi-directional wheels of a chariot and are described in the book of Ezekiel. And here you can see some of the rare depictions of the Ophanim, also referred to as thrones at times. So the most important angels in Christian hierarchy are the Seraphim, and you may wonder why I have called them Seraphim instead of a seraph or seraphs until now. Well, the Bible really only mentions the Seraphim in plural. But in today's language, we can also use the word seraph to refer to a single angel of this highest order. And while I already show some images of the 6th-winged seraph, the main passage for their existence is based on Isaiah chapter 1. The prophet Isaiah described there a vision that he had of God seated on a throne, being surrounded by seraph angels, and I quote, "Each angel had 6 wings. They used 2 wings to cover their faces, 2 wings to cover their bodies, and 2 wings to fly. The angels were calling to each other, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord all-powerful. His glory fills the whole earth.'" So the seraphim surround God, praising Him, and have 3 pairs of wings, a face and a body. And so that is what artists would base their depiction of them on. As you can see in this limited selection of paintings which include seraphim, they are not very popular and they are depicted in heavenly spheres, usually surrounding God. Look for example at the San Giobbe altarpiece from around 1487 by Giovanni Bellini, showing the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus surrounded by several saints. The seraphim here are in the sphere above the Madonna theme, and we can clearly see 3 pairs of wings. As you may have noticed, sometimes the seraphim are depicted as adults with 3 pairs of wings, but other times as small babies, a strange phenomenon which I will explain in a moment when looking at the cherubim. The second most important angel in the Christian hierarchy is the cherubim. The influential 13th century theologian Thomas Aquinas wrote that whereas the seraphim are characterized by their burning love for God, the cherubim are known for their knowledge. And while cherubim are mentioned more often than seraphim in the Bible, the main source for how they look like comes from Ezekiel chapter 1, which reads, "Inside the cloud there were 4 living beings that looked like people, but each one of them had 4 faces and 4 wings." And a few verses later it mentions that each living being had 4 faces. In the front they had a man's face. There was a lion's face on the right side and a bull's face on the left side. There was an eagle's face on the back. So the basic description is that a cherub is a human figure with 4 wings and 4 faces, and I would imagine something like this, although here there seem to be 3 pairs of wings. In fact, most cherubs in art history look more like cupids than what is described in the book of Ezekiel, at least in Western art. It was during the time that Renaissance artists were trying to merge the ideas from mythology with those of religion, and the cupid became the go-to example for the cherubim, a small, plump, winged boy. They almost always have a single face, but some artists at least gave them multiple pairs of wings to separate their presence from other lower-ranking angels. Well, these seraphim and cherubim are a bit of a strange subject, as they are not depicted very consistently over time, and these 2 angels are in many cases just merged into a more general subject of heavenly angels. Look for example at this painting from the 1450s by Jean Fouquet, showing Mary and Jesus surrounded by both seraphim and cherubim, none of them resembling their biblical descriptions. But some elements of their original descriptions have creeped into art, like this painting from 1370 entitled Seraphim, Cherubim and Adoring Angels. At least we see that the angels in the foreground have a single pair of wings, making them less important than the angels in the back having at least 2 pairs of wings. While a complicated topic, I hope you enjoyed this video and you can support the channel by subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button. And please feel free to leave your thoughts about this subject in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.